I was sitting in the living room when my mother said it. My father stood behind her, arms crossed. My sister Raven sat on the couch, crying softly into her hands. "You need to take responsibility," my mother said. Her voice was calm, cold. "Raven can't go to prison. Look at her. She's delicate. She wouldn't survive." I stared at her. "I didn't do anything." "You're the older sister," my father added. "You've always been stronger, uglier. This is what family does." I looked at Raven. She didn't look up. She didn't say a word. It started 3 weeks earlier. Raven had been driving my car. She asked to borrow it because hers was in the shop. I said yes. I always said yes. She came home late that night, parked it in the driveway, and handed me the keys without a word. The next morning, 2 police officers knocked on the door. They asked for me by name. They said my car had been involved in a hit and run, a pedestrian, serious injuries. They had footage of the license plate. I told them I wasn't driving. I told them my sister had the car. They wrote it down. They said they'd be in touch. Raven cried for hours that day. She said it wasn't her fault. She said the person walked into the street. She said she panicked and drove away because she was scared. My mother held her, rocked her, told her it would be okay. My father called a lawyer, not for me, for Raven. I just sat in the kitchen and waited for someone to ask me what I saw, what I knew. No one did. The lawyer came to the house 2 days later. He was expensive, the kind with a leather briefcase and a firm handshake. He sat at the dining table with my parents and Raven. I wasn't invited into the room, but I could hear everything from the hallway. He said the case was serious. Felony hit and run. If convicted, Raven could face years in prison. My mother's voice cracked. She's only 23. She has her whole life ahead of her. The lawyer paused. Then he said, "If someone else takes responsibility, the outcome could be very different." I felt my stomach drop. I walked into the room. "What does that mean?" The lawyer looked at me, then at my parents. My father spoke first. "It means the car was registered in your name. Technically, you're already involved." "But I wasn't driving," I said. My mother's face hardened. "We know that, but Raven can't handle this. You've always been tougher. You don't have her sensitivity, her future." I looked at Raven. She was staring at the table. Her hands were folded in her lap. She looked small, fragile, pretty, even while crying. "You want me to say I was driving?" I said. It wasn't a question. My father nodded. "It's the right thing to do. You're her sister." I left the room. I went upstairs. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. Hours later, my mother came in. She didn't sit down. She stood in the doorway and said, "You've always been difficult, selfish. This is your chance to do something good for once." I didn't respond. She closed the door. That night, Raven knocked softly. She came in without waiting for an answer. "Please," she whispered. "I'm so scared. You don't understand what it's like. I can't go to jail. I just can't." I asked her if she even felt bad. She blinked. Then she left. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed and thought about every time I had been asked to step aside, to be smaller, to make room. When I was 12, my parents took Raven to Disneyland for her birthday. They said I was too old to enjoy it anymore. When I was 16, I worked weekends at a grocery store to save for a car. My mother asked me to give the money to Raven for her prom dress. She said Raven deserved to feel beautiful. I gave her the money. When I graduated high school, my parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said Raven had a dance recital the same day. It was more important. I told myself it was fine, that I didn't need them there. When I got into college, I paid for it myself. Loans, scholarships, night shifts. Raven's tuition was paid in full by our parents. She studied art history. She dropped out after a year because it wasn't fulfilling. No one asked her to pay them back. When I bought my first apartment, my mother said it was small and sad. When Raven moved into a studio downtown that our father co-signed for, my mother posted photos on Facebook. She said she was so proud. I had always told myself it didn't matter, that love wasn't measured in money or attention, that I was independent, strong, better off. But sitting in that room, listening to them ask me to go to prison for something I didn't do, I realized the truth. I wasn't strong, I was just convenient. I wasn't independent, I was just alone. They didn't admire me, they tolerated me. I was the ugly one, the difficult one, the one who didn't need anything because they had never offered anything. The lawyer called me the next day. He said my parents wanted to move forward. He said if I agreed to take responsibility, he could negotiate a plea deal. Reduced sentence. Maybe probation. Maybe not. He said it was my choice, but he also said Raven's future depended on it. I asked him what would happen if I said no. He paused. Then he said, "Your sister goes to trial, and your parents will have to live with that." He didn't say what I would have to live with. I hung up. 2 days later, my mother came to my apartment. She didn't call first. She just knocked until I opened the door. She stood in the hallway with her purse clutched tight. "We need an answer," she said. I stepped aside. "Let her in." She didn't sit. She stood in the middle of my living room and looked around like she was inspecting it, like she was judging how I lived. "This is a simple decision," she said. "You do this or you destroy your sister's life. It's not complicated." I asked her if she thought I deserved to go to prison. She blinked. "It's not about what you deserve. It's about what's right for this family." I told her I wasn't going to do it. Her face changed. It wasn't anger. It was something colder. Disgust. "You've always been selfish," she said. "Even as a child, you never thought about anyone but yourself. Raven needs you. And you're going to stand there and say no?" I told her Raven was an adult, that she made a choice, that I wasn't responsible for her choices. My mother's voice dropped. "You're trash," she said. "You've always been trash, ugly, cold. I don't know what I did to deserve a daughter like you." I felt something break. Not my heart. Something deeper. I looked at her and I didn't see my mother anymore. I saw a stranger. Someone I had spent 28 years trying to please, trying to earn love from. And I realized she had none to give. Not to me. I opened the door. "Leave," I said. She stared at me. "If you do this, you're not my daughter anymore." I didn't respond. She left. I closed the door. I locked it, and I called a lawyer, my own. My lawyer's name was Sharon. She was older, direct. She didn't try to convince me of anything. She just listened. I told her everything. The accident, the pressure, the lawyer my parents hired, the things my mother said. Sharon took notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "You're not taking the fall for this. We're going to make sure of that." She contacted the police. She provided a statement on my behalf. She included phone records, text messages, proof that Raven had asked to borrow my car that night, proof that I wasn't even in the same part of town when the accident happened. Sharon also requested the police footage, the one they said showed my license plate. When we reviewed it, you could see the driver, dark hair, Raven's build, not mine. The police had known. They just didn't care. It was easier to go after the registered owner. Sharon made sure they cared. Raven was charged a week later. My parents called me 16 times that day. I didn't answer. My father left a voicemail. He said I had ruined everything, that I was selfish and cruel, that I had destroyed Raven's life out of spite. He said I was dead to them. I saved the voicemail, just in case. My mother sent a text. It said, "I hope you're happy. You've always wanted to hurt her." I blocked the number. Raven's lawyer tried to negotiate, but because she fled the scene, because she lied to police, because she tried to frame someone else, the charges were worse. Felony, hit and run, obstruction. She took a plea deal eventually. 2 years. She'd serve 18 months if she behaved. My parents set up a GoFundMe to help with her legal fees. In the description, my mother wrote that Raven was a kind, sensitive young woman who made a mistake and was being punished too harshly. She didn't mention me. Not once. The fundraiser made $600. I didn't go to the sentencing. I didn't need to. Sharon told me everything. Raven cried. My mother cried. My father stood stoic and angry. The judge was unimpressed. He said Raven had shown no real remorse, that she had tried to let someone else take the blame, that her actions after the accident were worse than the accident itself. He said accountability mattered. I felt nothing when Sharon told me. Not relief, not vindication, just quiet. I moved 6 months later. A new city. A better job. I didn't tell my parents where I went. I didn't tell Raven. I changed my number. I deleted my social media. I started over. Some mornings I still think about that night in the living room. My mother's voice, my father's silence, Raven's tears. But I don't feel anger anymore. I don't feel guilt. I feel free. I don't owe anyone my life. Not even family. It's especially not family who only saw me as useful when I could take their pain. I'm not the ugly sister anymore. I'm not the expendable one. I'm just me. And that's enough. I wake up every day in an apartment that's mine. I work a job I chose. I have friends who see me, really see me, and no one asks me to disappear. That's not loneliness. That's peace. I used to think family meant loyalty. Now I know it means respect. And respect goes both ways. I gave them 28 years. They gave me a lesson I'll never forget.